easy. So what was your motivation for running for Congress?
My background is that, I grew up in southeastern Michigan in a town called Novi, and, that is really the heart of our district right now. And, the way that my family got to Novi was through, pretty unusual circumstances. My mom was a refugee, based in a refugee camp in India. Yeah, this is in the 1950s when, this is shortly after partition. And, if you're a little girl living under those circumstances in that part of the world, you're told that you really don't have much of a future. But she had heard of a place called Michigan, and because Michigan in the 1950s was really sort of the Silicon Valley of the world. And so she, her parents, my grandparents, saved up every dime that they could muster, got her to the United States, helped her get an education. She found a way to get herself eventually to Michigan, and then in 1967 she found a way to become Ford Motor Company's first female engineer.
Oh, wow.
And so that is our roots, that is our story, and that is why I was able to sort of get the education and get the upbringing that I got. One thing that my mom, if there was anything that she taught me, there was one thing in particular, which is that we all belong. So if I was ever, there weren't too many Indian families living where I lived, and if I would ever tell my mom that I felt different or that I didn't belong, she was always quick to put a finger in my face and say, "Look, we all belong." And I think that that's what drove me as a progressive, as a Democrat. I got involved with Democratic politics from a really, really early age, knocking on doors, became a community organizer, worked on political campaigns, and a lot of it was just because I really believe that. I believe that no matter who you are, we all belong. But I think now as a father myself, I have two daughters. I think it's really hard for, especially my older daughter, who's 6 years old and can now understand what's happening on television, to turn on the television and actually believe that, we are living in a country in a time where we all feel like we belong. I think that you see children that look like us, stripped away from their parents and put in cages. You see teachers on food stamps. You see kids killing each other at school without any real response from the government. You see senior citizens that are making a weekly choice between food and medicine. And all of that goes to say that, look, we don't all really belong. You have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to behave a certain way, you have to pray a certain way in order to belong. I really believe that is Trump's America. That is not our America. I'm running for Congress because I believe that the quality of a child's education shouldn't depend on their zip code. I believe that healthcare is a human right, and I believe that thoughts and prayers are not enough, that we need common sense gun legislation, and we need it now.
But what do you think about the current state of the U.S.-Indian relationship, and if you were in Congress, what would you do to work on it, or how would you work on that?
Yeah, I think that India has always been a very important ally to the United States, and I'm obviously proud of that, and I'm proud to be Indian. I'm proud when I go back and I see my family and I see how developed, how much progress continues to be made every time I'm back there, and I think that you have the world's oldest democracy, us, and the world's largest democracy, India, and real opportunities, I think, to continue sort of strengthening those ties. I think that strategically you have, really shared values where you have a country that believes in free and fair elections and a country that's situated geographically to be a very important ally for us in terms of what's happening in the world, not just in terms of, the economy, but what's happening in terms of national security. So it is, my intention to make sure that our two countries continue to form and strengthen our bond.
Something that's important to Indian Americans is small businesses and the growth of that. So what would you do for the high number of small businesses in biotech, renewable energy? What steps would you be able to take to protect those small businesses?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question, because if you look at Michigan, for example, close to 2 out of 3 new good-paying jobs that are created here in Michigan are actually coming from small businesses, not large businesses. And yet, oftentimes when we talk about sort of the economy and what we can do to partner the public sector and the private sector, oftentimes we're not really talking about those small businesses, and we need to be doing more of that. I've been spending my time lecturing on entrepreneurship over the past few years at universities here, schools here in Michigan. And one of the things that I realize is that the interest in becoming an entrepreneur and in being part of something small and helping it grow is higher than ever before, especially amongst young people. The problem, though, is that oftentimes there's a conception that you need to go to one of the coasts in order to do that. And I think part of the reason for that is just, the ecosystems that have been created in other parts of the country that, we need to be doing a better job creating here. So, for example, access to capital is really, really important. So you have a small business that's able to get off the ground because you're able to raise sort of your first round of funding, but now, what about now the follow-on round of funding? We need to be doing a better job attracting capital, I think, here to Michigan so that we can help small businesses reach the levels that they need to reach in order to become thriving businesses and actually to create jobs. The second thing is talent. You may have heard that, Michigan was one of the places that Amazon was considering to set up headquarters to, but they decided to go somewhere else. And one of the key reasons they gave was we have a tougher time here in Michigan holding on to the great talent that we create, because we do create great talent. We have great universities, but then they finish up, and oftentimes people will leave. We need to make it so that people actually stay here in Michigan, which is one of the reasons that I'm working on a partnership from the federal, state, and community level, where if you attend one of our universities here, you graduate, and you stay in Michigan, and you're part of our economy, and that includes small businesses, we will help you repay your student loans.
And a lot of the problems that these Indian Americans are having, that whether they work for a large business or a small business, is the H-1B visa. So there's the back.
There are some real problems right now in the sort of community of people who are here on the H-1B status. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest problems that I see is that people are sort of left in limbo, where it will take, and you know this because you've probably looked into this as well, it can take decades sometime to convert to green card status. And so as a result of that, you try to start a family, try to start a life here in the United States. Oftentimes you have kids, but what happens is you haven't reached status by the time those kids are 21 years old, and the question is, what is their status? And it is a problem because you have this massive backlog of people who are waiting for an answer. And it's not just a problem for them, but it's a problem for our economy as well, because the challenge is that people, when they don't know where they stand, they're less reluctant to buy a home. They're less reluctant to put down the kinds of roots that help grow our economy. They're less reluctant to put more money and investment back into what's happening in society. They're less likely to give and get involved in what's happening in local politics, which is very important and part of sort of everybody's civic duty. And so you just have people who I think really want to be a part of it that actually aren't being a part of it. And it's to everyone's benefit to have them really be a part of it. And so we just need to be doing a much more effective job, I think, getting people through the pipeline and letting people know where they stand. Some of that, believe it or not, some of that is purely just a problem-solving and technology problem. One of the projects I worked on, I'm a computer programmer by training, science and technology background. One of the products I worked on early on in my career was a system here in the state of Michigan, which was helping the state track down deadbeat parents that weren't paying their child support. And the way we did it is we were basically using big data to match together data sets so that if somebody got pulled over on the side of the road for speeding, we pop a little flag up on the cop's dashboard saying, hey, this person is behind on their child support as well. and or if somebody walked into the Secretary of State's office to renew their driver's license, we pop a little flag up on the computer dashboard of the person taking the order saying, hey, this person is behind on the child support. And just through some simple fixes like that, we're able to drive tens of millions of dollars into the homes of single parents, mainly single mothers, who really needed that money. And the point I'm trying to make is that oftentimes simple solutions can help us be a lot more effective and efficient, but we don't really have that type of skill set and thinking in Congress. We have 535 members of Congress. Less than 10 of them have really ever worked with or studied, lines of code. And yet we know this is sort of the skill set that is really the future of where we're headed and what we need if we want to continue advancing as an economy and as a society.
So, are there any other issues that you believe that, like, the Indian American community faces that we may not have touched on that you would like to touch on?
Yeah, sure. Fundamentally, I'm a believer that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders share the same core interests as every other working family. And so I think when we talk about, the issues of healthcare, the issues of education, the issue of what's happening in gun violence here in this country, all of those are issues that I think every working family, including this community, deeply, deeply cares about. So, we haven't spoken yet about healthcare. I really believe that healthcare is a human right. And this is maybe one of the, I think, defining issues of our time. I got interested in healthcare, and I created a healthcare company that served lower-income patients by connecting them to clinically trained providers at a cheaper cost. The reason that I wanted to do that is because I believe that healthcare is a right, and I don't want to be part of the generation that 100 years from now people look back on and say, you did all these amazing things to advance the healthcare system, but you couldn't provide everybody with the most basic human care. You left seniors choosing between the food they take the food they eat and the medicine they take because they couldn't afford both. You stripped away health care from children. You stripped away health care from people who had pre-existing conditions and had zero control over that. You denied them care. That is not a fate that I think we as a generation can accept. We have to do something about that. And it can't just be talking points. It's got to be real solutions. One of the things I learned by creating the company that we created and by partnering with Michelle Obama to deliver care to thousands of people who needed it was that 5% of the patients in this country represent 50% of the cost. 50. And a lot of that 50% is actually preventable disease. So if you can help people before the point that they actually get sick, if you can give them the care they need before they actually get sick, not only can you help them become happier, more productive, contributing members of society, but you can dramatically reduce the overall cost in the system. And that, again, is, I think, the defining challenge of our time. And we need more people in Congress who understand this at a deep level and are ready to get to work.
What future impact do you see Indians and Indian Americans making on the political process? And do you have any advice for Indian Americans to get more involved in the democratic process?
Sure. So I think right now we're at the cusp, potentially, of something very special. A couple of weeks ago, there was a group out here in suburban Michigan that is called Samosa, and the group stands for South Asians that are moving for serious action. And it's an amazing group with great voices. They pull together a forum of all the candidates here in sort of Michigan's 11th district. Now, these forums, just so you know, can kind of be hit or miss. You can walk in and it can be a smaller audience or it can be a large audience. They're all great forums, but in terms of audience size, sometimes you're not sure where you're going to get. I walked in a couple of weeks ago to this forum that was hosted by this brand new South Asian group, and it was one of the largest forums that I have ever seen. It was packed on a Sunday. It was a beautiful day outside, so people, most people would want to be outside, but instead they were inside at this forum. I mean, it was unbelievable to see sort of the number of people that they were able to bring together. And I think that what we're finding is that there are a lot of people out there that are more motivated in this community than they ever have before. The question I think we have to answer is, can we turn voices into votes? Can you get people across the finish line and get them out there to vote. And that is the call to action that I think anybody who's listening who wants to get involved in the political process that comes from this community is figuring out how to solve that problem. How do you turn voices into votes? And particularly, I think, focusing on sort of a younger generation, because, and again, you have a younger generation that feels much more mobilized. Young people feel much more mobilized this year than ever before. But if you look at voting patterns in the past, typically, especially in sort of, this area of the country, in the Michigan area of the country, they haven't shown up to the polls in the way that we wanted them to before, and we want that to be different this time. So the biggest call to action is really to find groups of people, and particularly in our South Asian Pacific Islander group that haven't been as active before, that are active now, and give them the mechanisms they need to make sure they turn their voices into votes.